I want you to close your eyes for just a moment and imagine something with me. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and discovering that every single thing you've ever wanted, every dream you've whispered to yourself in the dark, every secret hope you've been too afraid to say out loud, has already been prepared for you. Not someday. Not if you're lucky. Not if you work hard enough or sacrifice enough or prove yourself worthy enough. But right now. Already done. Already wrapped up with your name on it, sitting in an invisible storehouse that exists beyond what your physical eyes can see. Now imagine that the only thing standing between you and that reality is not your bank account, not your education, not your past mistakes, not even your current circumstances. The only thing standing between you and everything you desire is the way you've been taught to think about what's possible for you. I'm going to tell you something that will sound absolutely insane to the practical mind, something that will make the skeptics roll their eyes and the realists shake their heads. But I've seen it work so many times, in so many lives, including my own, that I can no longer stay quiet about it. What I'm about to share with you isn't just about winning the lottery, though yes, we're going to talk about that. This is about understanding a law, a spiritual law, that's been operating in your life since the moment you took your first breath, whether you knew about it or not. You see, most people go through their entire lives believing they're at the mercy of chance. They buy lottery tickets and cross their fingers. They wish on stars. They pray desperate prayers that sound more like begging than belief. And then when nothing changes, when the big win doesn't come, when life continues to feel like a struggle, they decide that luck is for other people. That abundance is for other people. That magic, real magic, doesn't exist in this cold, hard world. But what if I told you that's backwards? What if I told you that you've been playing the game of life with the rules reversed, and that's precisely why you keep losing? What if the lottery, that jackpot you're dreaming about, is actually just a symbol, a physical manifestation of a much bigger truth about how this universe actually works? My name is Florence, and I've spent my life studying the invisible laws that govern our visible world. I've watched the broken become whole. I've seen the bankrupt become prosperous. I've witnessed the hopeless discover joy so profound it transformed everyone around them. And I'm going to tell you exactly how it happens, and more importantly, how it can happen for you. The first thing you must understand is this: your words are not idle chatter. They are not meaningless sounds that drift away into nothingness. Every word you speak is a decree, a command sent forth into the invisible realm where all things take form before they manifest in your physical reality. I remember a woman who came to me, weeping, clutching her handbag as though it contained her last hope. "Mrs. Shinn," she said, "I'm always sick. I've been sick for years. My body simply refuses to cooperate." And there it was, did you hear it? My sickness. My body refuses. She had claimed it, owned it, made it her intimate companion through the power of her own words. I looked at her and said, "My dear, stop claiming that sickness as yours. You're sending out invitations to illness with every sentence you speak." She looked shocked, as though I'd suggested something radical, but I continued. "From this moment forward, you must speak only of health, vitality, and perfect functioning. Even if your body screams otherwise, your words must paint the picture of what you desire, not what you see," she protested. "Of course, but I am sick. Isn't that just lying?" And here's where so many people stumble. They confuse speaking their truth with speaking truth itself. Your current circumstances are not the truth. They are simply facts. Temporary situations that can and will change when you align your words with divine principle. I taught her to say instead, "I am healthy, whole, and radiantly alive. Every cell in my body functions in perfect harmony." She felt foolish at first, speaking these words while feeling terrible. But she persisted, and within weeks, something shifted. Her doctor was baffled by her sudden improvement. But I wasn't. I'd seen this transformation hundreds of times. You see, the universe doesn't distinguish between what you want and what you don't want. It only responds to what you're claiming through your speech and thought. When you say, "I'm so broke," the universe says, "Yes, you are. Let me arrange circumstances to confirm that for you." When you declare, "I never have enough," divine intelligence takes that as your order and delivers accordingly. This is why I say with such conviction, Your word is your wand. It is the most potent instrument you possess, and most people wield it unconsciously, carelessly, as if they were children playing with matches in a room full of gasoline. I had a student come to me years ago, utterly bewildered by her circumstances. "Florence," she said, "I don't understand why nothing ever works out for me. I try so hard, but I'm always disappointed." Right there. Do you hear it? Nothing ever works out for me. I'm always disappointed. She was speaking her reality into existence with every breath, and then wondering why her life reflected exactly what she declared. I gave her an assignment. For 1 week, she was to become a guardian at the gate of her own mouth. Every time she caught herself speaking lack, limitation, or fear, she was to immediately cancel it with a statement of truth. That's not true. The truth is, everything is working together for my highest good. At first, she thought it was silly, superstitious even, but I told her what I'm telling you now. This is not superstition. This is spiritual law, as reliable as the law of gravity. Test it and see. Within 3 weeks, her entire world had shifted. Not because circumstances magically changed overnight, but because she stopped energizing the pattern of failure and disappointment. She stopped giving it her attention, her emotion, her life force. And when you stop watering weeds, they die. When you start watering seeds of good, they flourish. Now, here's what most people miss: the lag time. There's a gestation period between your word and its manifestation. You don't plant a seed on Monday and expect roses on Tuesday. Yet, in the realm of thought and speech, people give up after a day or two of affirmative statements because they don't see immediate results. The truth is, the invisible world operates on its own timeline, not yours. Your job isn't to micromanage the how or the when. Your job is to remain faithful to the word you've spoken. I've watched people speak their good into existence with such conviction, only to cancel it out 3 days later with doubt-filled conversations. They'll affirm prosperity in the morning, then spend their evening commiserating with friends about how broke they are. Do you see the contradiction? You cannot build and demolish simultaneously and expect to see results. This is where most people stumble. They treat spiritual law like a light switch they can flick on and off at will. But consciousness doesn't work that way. Once you've set a spiritual law into motion through your word, you must maintain the vibration that matches it. Think of it like tuning a radio. You don't tune into your favorite station, hear one song, then twist the dial back to static and wonder why the music stopped. Yet this is precisely what people do with their words. They speak faith, then immediately tune back into the frequency of fear and limitation. I knew a woman who desperately wanted to sell her house. The market was slow, and she'd been trying for months. When she came to me, I asked her what she'd been saying about the house. "Oh," she replied, "I tell everyone it's impossible to sell anything in this market. Everyone's in the same boat." There was your problem right there. Her words were saturated with the consciousness of impossibility. I instructed her to stop discussing the house altogether except to say, "The right buyer is being led to my house now. Divine intelligence is handling this sale." She resisted at first. It felt dishonest somehow, given what her eyes were showing her, but she agreed to the experiment. Within 2 weeks, a buyer appeared, someone who'd driven past the house dozens of times before, but suddenly felt compelled to inquire. The sale went through without a single complication. What changed? Not the market, not the house. Her words changed, and therefore her consciousness changed, and the invisible rearranged itself to match her new mental picture. Now, many of you are thinking, "But Florence, I've been saying affirmations. I've been thinking positively. Why hasn't anything changed?" And I'll tell you exactly why. Because you're saying the words with your mouth, while your heart is screaming something entirely different. The universe doesn't respond to your words. It responds to your conviction. It responds to the feeling tone beneath the words. You can stand in front of a mirror and say, "I am prosperous," 1,000 times. But if underneath you're thinking, "Who am I kidding? Look at my bank account," then you're simply wasting your breath. This is why intellectual understanding alone changes nothing. You can read every metaphysical book ever written, and believe me, many people do and still remain stuck in the same circumstances. Because reading is not embodiment. Knowing is not being. I once worked with a man who could quote scripture backwards and forwards. He knew every spiritual principle there was to know. And yet he was drowning in debt, miserable in his marriage, stuck in work he despised. "Florence," he said to me, "I know the truth. Why isn't it working?" And I said to him, "You know the truth the way you know Paris exists. But you've never been there. You've never walked its streets. You've never breathed its air. Knowing about something and knowing something are two entirely different things. So the real work, is not in accumulating more knowledge. It's in closing the gap between what you say and what you believe. It's in bringing your inner conversation into alignment with your outer declarations. And how do you do this? Not through force, not through willpower, not through gritting your teeth and trying to believe something your entire being rejects. You do it through what I call acting as if. You behave as the person who already has what you desire would behave. Not in some fake, performative way, but genuinely stepping into that consciousness, trying it on like a new coat until it fits. If you desire prosperity, you must think prosperously before the money arrives. You must feel the relief, the ease, the freedom of prosperity, now not when your circumstances change, but before they change. This is the secret that most people never grasp. I once knew a woman who wanted desperately to move from her cramped apartment into a beautiful home. Every day, she complained about her small space. She resented her neighbors. She criticized the peeling paint and the narrow hallways. And do you know what happened? She remained there for 7 more years, growing more bitter with each passing month. Then something shifted. She began a different practice. Each morning, she would close her eyes and give thanks not for the home she wanted, but as though she already lived there. She felt the sunlight streaming through larger windows. She imagined walking through spacious rooms. She blessed her current apartment and said, "Thank you for sheltering me until my greater good arrives." Within 3 months, an unexpected inheritance came through a distant relative she barely knew existed. Within 6 months, she held the keys to a home that exceeded even her visualizations. This is not magic. This is law. You see, gratitude is the bridge between where you are and where you wish to be. Complaint keeps you anchored to your present circumstances. It is the nail that fastens you to your limitation. But gratitude? Gratitude loosens the soil around your roots so you can be transplanted into richer ground. When you dare to give thanks before the manifestation appears, you send a clear signal to the invisible forces that govern this universe. You declare, "I know this is mine. I know it is already done in the spiritual realm. I am simply waiting for the physical world to catch up with what has already been established." This requires tremendous faith, I grant you. It feels foolish to thank the universe for money when your bank account shows a deficit. It seems absurd to feel grateful for perfect health when your body aches. But remember, the spiritual always precedes the physical. The feeling must come first. The faith must precede the evidence. Let me tell you plainly, you cannot wait for proof before you believe. The very act of waiting for proof is what delays your demonstration. You must believe first, feel it first, give thanks first. Then, and only then, does the universe rearrange itself to match your inner conviction. This is why I tell my students, act as if, speak as if, feel as if. Not from desperation or pretense, but from the quiet, knowing that what you desire is already yours in the realm of infinite possibility. Your only task is to claim it, to accept it, to make room for it in your consciousness. When you begin to live from this consciousness, the entire world shifts. Not because the world has changed, but because you have changed your relationship to it. You are no longer a beggar at the table of life, hoping for scraps. You are the invited guest, seated at the banquet, fully aware that everything on the table has been prepared for you. This is where the magic truly begins. I once knew a woman who had lived in poverty for years. Not just financial poverty, but a poverty of spirit. She believed herself unworthy of love, of comfort, of beauty. Her surroundings reflected this belief perfectly. Her home was sparse, cold, joyless. She wore the same drab clothes day after day, not because she lacked the means to buy others, but because somewhere deep within, she had decided she didn't deserve anything better. One day, something within her awakened. Perhaps it was exhaustion with her own suffering. Perhaps it was a glimpse of truth that broke through the clouds of her thinking. Whatever the cause, she made a decision. She would no longer live as though she were unworthy. She would act as if she were already the woman she longed to be. She began small. She bought flowers for her table. Not expensive arrangements, just simple blossoms from the market. But she placed them there as if she were a woman who deserved beauty in her life. She cleared out her closet and kept only the clothes that made her feel dignified. She walked differently, spoke differently, not from affectation, but from a quiet inner shift. Within months, her entire life had transformed. A better position came to her. New friendships blossomed. Opportunities appeared that had always been there, but that she had been blind to because she wasn't vibrating at the frequency to perceive them. The universe had not suddenly decided to favor her. She had simply aligned herself with what was always available. This is the power of assumption. This is the power of living as if. But here is what you must understand. This is not about pretending. It is not about lying to yourself or denying your current circumstances. It is about choosing which reality you will feed with your attention. You can acknowledge where you are while simultaneously knowing where you are going. Consider the gardener who plants seeds in spring. She does not stand over the soil, wringing her hands, demanding to see the roots form beneath the surface. She does not dig up the seeds every morning to check their progress. She waters them, she tends the soil, she trusts the process. And in trusting, she allows the natural law of growth to do its perfect work. You must become like that gardener with your own desires. Plant the seed of your intention clearly in the soil of consciousness. Water it with your faith, tend it with your attention. And then, and this is crucial, stop digging it up with your doubt. Every time you say, "I wonder if this will really work," you are pulling up the seed to examine it. Every time you look at your current circumstances and say, "Well, I guess nothing is changing," you are trampling the tender shoots just beginning to break through the soil. Your impatience is not a sign of strong desire, it is a sign of weak faith. The universe operates on a different timeline than your anxious mind demands. What seems like delay to you is often divine preparation. You are being made ready for what you have asked for. The channels are being cleared. The obstacles are being moved. The people who will help you are being brought into alignment. All of this is happening in the invisible before it can manifest in the visible. I knew a woman who desired a new position in her field, one that would utilize her gifts more fully and compensate her more generously. She spoke the word clearly. She held the vision. But weeks passed, then months, and nothing seemed to shift. Her friends told her to be realistic, to lower her expectations. But she held steady. She continued to prepare herself as if the position were already on its way. She updated her skills, she refined her presentation, she acted as the person who already held such a role would act. Then one day, seemingly out of nowhere, she received a call. A position had opened, not just any position, but one so perfectly suited to her that it seemed designed specifically for her talents. And here is the important part. The person who hired her later told her that the position had not even existed 3 months earlier. It had been created in response to a need that had only recently emerged in the organization. Do you see? While she was waiting, while she was holding her vision steady, the universe was literally creating the position for her. It was forming in the invisible realm, taking shape, gathering the necessary elements. Had she given up in despair after 2 months, she would have abandoned her creation just before its birth. This is the principle of gestation that operates throughout all of nature. You plant a seed in the ground, and you don't dig it up every morning to see if it's growing. You water it, you tend it, you trust the process. The farmer doesn't stand over his field wringing his hands in anxiety. He knows that between the planting and the harvest, there is a season of invisible growth. The roots must establish themselves in darkness before the shoot can break through into light. Your desires, your visions, your spoken words, these too have their season of gestation. And here is what most people don't understand. The gestation period is not idle time. It's not the universe being slow or indifferent. It's the period of preparation, both in the outer world and within yourself. During this waiting period, you are being prepared to receive. If the woman had gotten that position immediately, before she had learned to hold her vision steady in the face of doubt, before she had strengthened her faith muscles through practice, she might not have had the inner capacity to hold it. She might have received it in fear and lost it just as quickly. The universe is always working on 2 fronts simultaneously. It's arranging the outer circumstances, moving people into position, creating opportunities, dissolving obstacles. And it's also working on you, strengthening your faith, dissolving your doubts, expanding your capacity to receive and hold what you've asked for. I've watched this principle play out hundreds of times. A woman wants marriage, and during the waiting period, she discovers and heals her fear of abandonment. A man wants a business opportunity, and during the waiting period, he learns discipline and releases his tendency toward impulsiveness. The delay wasn't punishment or denial, it was preparation. This is why you must never judge by appearances during the waiting period. When it looks like nothing is happening, everything is happening. When it seems your prayers have gone unheard, they're already being answered in the invisible realm. The gap between your word and its manifestation is not emptiness, it's the creative process itself. I declare to you now, what you have spoken in faith is already done in spirit. The work is complete. What you're experiencing now is simply the time it takes for the spiritual reality to crystallize into physical form. You're not waiting for God to decide whether to give it to you. You're waiting for your faith to bring it through the veil between the invisible and the visible. And this is where so many of us stumble. We look at our bank account, our empty inbox, our unchanged circumstances, and we think, nothing's happening. It's not working. But that's like a farmer digging up his seeds every morning to check if they're growing. The very act of digging them up prevents the growth you're so desperately looking for. Your work now is to live from the end result. To walk as if you've already received. To speak as if it's already done. This isn't pretending, this is aligning yourself with the spiritual reality that already exists. I knew a woman who needed to move out of a cramped apartment that was making her ill. She had no money, no prospects, and everyone told her it was impossible. But she began to thank God for her beautiful new home. She spoke about it in present tense. My home is filled with light. My home has space for me to breathe and create. She even packed a few boxes. Her friends thought she'd lost her mind. Where was she going to go? How would she pay for it? But she refused to entertain those questions with fear. She simply maintained her spiritual vision. Within 3 weeks, a friend of a friend mentioned a house-sitting opportunity, a beautiful home that needed someone responsible for 6 months, with an option to stay longer at minimal rent. The owner was traveling and wanted someone who would truly appreciate the space. This woman didn't create the opportunity through struggle. She didn't manipulate circumstances. She simply held so steadily to the vision that when the bridge appeared between the invisible and visible, she was ready to walk across it. You see, the universe is constantly rearranging itself to match your inner conviction. Not your wishes, not your fears, your conviction. What you're absolutely certain about becomes the organizing principle of your experience. So, when you're in that waiting period, and there will be waiting periods, your job isn't to figure out how it will happen. Your job is to refuse entrance to doubt, to guard your vision like a sentinel guards a gate, to keep your inner conversation aligned with your desired outcome. When worry knocks, you don't open the door and invite it in for tea. You don't sit with it and listen to all its dire predictions. You recognize it as an intruder, and you shut the door firmly. This isn't denial. This is discrimination. You're not pretending challenges don't exist. You're refusing to give them a seat at the table of your consciousness. You're declining to rehearse disaster. I've watched people destroy perfectly good manifestations through the simple act of worrying. They plant the seed, water it with intention, and then dig it up every day to see if it's growing. They suffocate their own harvest with anxiety. The seed doesn't need your worry. It needs your faith. Think of a farmer. Once he's planted his crops, does he stand in the field wringing his hands? Does he lie awake, wondering if the seeds remember how to sprout? Does he dig them up to check their progress? No, he trusts the process. He goes about his work. He prepares for the harvest. You must do the same with your desires. Plant them in consciousness through clear intention. Water them with gratitude and expectation. Then leave them alone to do what seeds do naturally grow. Your constant checking, your perpetual doubt, your anxious monitoring, these are not signs of care. They're signs of faithlessness. And faithlessness is toxic to manifestation. I want you to understand something crucial. The universe doesn't respond to your words. It responds to your conviction. You can affirm abundance all day long, but if underneath those words is a trembling uncertainty, If your inner voice is whispering, "But what if it doesn't work?" then you're not affirming, you're contradicting. You're trying to build with one hand while tearing down with the other. The power is in the feeling beneath the words. The unshakable knowing. The quiet certainty that what you've claimed in consciousness must appear in form. This is why I say, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Don't wait for evidence to feel successful. Feel successful now, and the evidence will follow. Don't wait for the money to feel abundant. Feel abundant now, and money will find its way to you. This is why so many people struggle financially. They're trying to feel good about money, times after times it arrives. They say, when I get that raise, then I'll relax. When my business succeeds, then I'll celebrate. But this is backwards thinking. Your inner state is not the result of your circumstances. Your circumstances are the result of your inner state. I knew a woman who was drowning in debt. Every morning, she woke up with that tight feeling in her chest, the anxiety of bills unpaid, creditors calling, her bank account gasping for air. She would check her balance obsessively, as if staring at those numbers would somehow make them grow. And each time she looked, she felt worse. She was affirming her lack with every fearful glance. One day, she came to me desperate. "What do I do?" she asked. "How do I get out of this hole?" I told her something that shocked her. Stop checking your bank account for a while, and every time you think about money, I want you to say, "I am supplied by infinite abundance. My needs are already met." Feel grateful as though the money has already arrived. She looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "But that's not true," she protested. "The bills are real. The debt is real." "Yes," I said, "but your fear is making it worse. Your worry is a prayer for more lack. Change your inner state and watch what happens." She decided to trust the process. Every morning, instead of anxious checking, she spent 5 minutes in gratitude. She thanked the universe for her supply. She walked as though she was already provided for. She stopped talking about her problems and started speaking only about solutions and blessings. Within 2 weeks, unexpected money came. A refund she'd forgotten about. A client who finally paid an old invoice. A small freelance opportunity that landed in her lap. None of it was dramatic, but it was steady. The universe was responding to her new vibration. Within 3 months, her debt was cut in half. Within 6 months, she was completely free. But here's what she told me that moved me most. The money didn't change my life. Changing how I felt about money changed my life. Even before the money came, I felt different, lighter, more peaceful. And that's when everything shifted. You see, abundance is not something you chase. It's something you allow. And you allow it by embodying it now, in this present moment, regardless of what your bank account says. Let me tell you what I mean by that. There was a woman who came to me once, desperate. She had been unemployed for months. Bills were piling up. Her savings were gone. She felt like a failure. Like she had done something wrong. Like the universe had forgotten her. I looked at her and I said, "Do you want to know why the money hasn't come?" She nodded, tears in her eyes. "Because every day," I told her, "you wake up and the first thing you do is count what you don't have. You rehearse your poverty. You speak it, you feel it, you wear it like a cloak. And the universe, being the perfect mirror that it is, keeps giving you more reasons to feel that way." She looked confused. "But it's true," she said. "I am poor right now." "Yes," I said, "but you don't have to be poor in consciousness. That's the difference." I gave her an assignment. Every morning, before her feet touched the floor, she was to say out loud, "Infinite Spirit, open the way for my immediate supply. Let all that is mine by divine right now reach me, in great avalanches of abundance." She was skeptical, but she was also desperate. And desperation, sometimes, is the doorway to surrender. She did it. Every single morning. And at first, nothing happened. Her bills didn't disappear, no checks arrived in the mail. But something else began to shift. She started to feel different, lighter, more hopeful. She stopped obsessing over every dollar. She stopped the mental torture of replaying her mistakes. And then, within 3 weeks, she got a call. A former colleague wanted to hire her for a project. It wasn't her dream job, but it paid well, better than well. and it led to another opportunity, and then another. Within 2 months, she had more work than she could handle. Was it the affirmation? Was it coincidence? Was it just timing? I'll tell you what it was. It was alignment. She stopped blocking her good with fear. She stopped pushing abundance away with her words and her thoughts. She opened the channel. And once that channel was open, the universe could rush in. And what happened next was nothing short of miraculous. Not in the way we often imagine miracles with trumpets and celestial choirs, but in the quiet, persistent way that life reorganizes itself when we stop interfering with its natural flow. Within weeks, a distant relative she'd barely spoken to in years passed away and left her a small inheritance. Not a fortune, mind you, but enough to clear her debts and give her breathing room. A month later, her employer offered her a position she hadn't even applied for, one that paid nearly double her previous salary. And the people who owed her money? They began to pay. One by one, checks arrived in her mailbox, some with apologetic notes, some without explanation at all. Now, I want you to understand something crucial here. The universe didn't suddenly decide to favor her. The universe had always been ready to favor her. What changed was her willingness to receive. She had been like a woman standing in a river, dying of thirst, because she refused to cup her hands and drink. The water was always there. She simply had to accept it. This is the secret that eludes so many. Affirmations are not about convincing God or the universe of what you want. They're about convincing times you asterisk. They're about reprogramming the subconscious mind that's been running on old, corrupted software. Software installed by parents who meant well but knew no better. By teachers who repeated what they'd been taught, by a society that profits from your sense of lack. When you say, I am a magnet for prosperity, you're not casting a spell on the cosmos. You're casting a spell on yourself. You're breaking the hypnosis of limitation. You're waking up from the collective dream of scarcity into the reality of abundance. And here's what makes this so powerful. Your subconscious mind doesn't argue. It doesn't debate. It simply accepts what you repeatedly tell it as truth, and then sets about making that truth manifest in your physical reality. It's like a faithful servant who takes your orders without question. If you constantly tell it you're broke, it will find ways to keep you broke. If you tell it you're abundant, it will find ways to make you abundant. This is why consistency matters. One affirmation spoken in a moment of inspiration won't override years of negative conditioning. But affirmations spoken daily, with feeling, with conviction, with the emotional intensity of knowing they're already true, these rewire your mental circuitry. These reshape your energetic field. These change everything. I've watched people transform their entire financial reality in weeks, not through harder work, but through consistent reprogramming of their mental atmosphere. A woman came to me drowning in debt, working 3 jobs, barely sleeping. Her thoughts were a constant loop of fear. I'll never get out of this. I'm buried alive. There's no way forward. I gave her one affirmation to speak every morning and night. Money flows to me easily and constantly from expected and unexpected sources. She resisted at first. But that's not true, she said. I'm broke. Speak it anyway, I told her. Speak it until your subconscious believes it more than your bank account denies it. Within 2 weeks, an old friend called offering her a position that paid more than all 3 jobs combined. Within a month, she received an unexpected tax refund she'd forgotten about. Within 3 months, the debt that had suffocated her for years was manageable, then nearly gone. Magic? No. Mental law. She stopped broadcasting the frequency of lack. She stopped magnetizing more debt with debt consciousness. She began vibrating at the frequency of abundance. And abundance answered. Your words are not meaningless sounds. They are creative forces. They are broadcasting stations. They are magnetic fields, pulling experiences toward you or pushing them away. When you say, I always get sick this time of year, you're placing an order with the universe. You're programming your body. You're activating the law that says, as within, so without. When you say instead, my body is divinely protected and radiantly healthy, you cancel that old order. You reprogram the pattern. You shift the magnetic field. This isn't about pretending. It's about declaring truth at a higher level than appearances suggest. The person who says, I'm so tired, becomes more tired. The person who says, Infinite energy flows through me now, taps into reserves they didn't know existed. I've seen this principle work in the most practical ways. A woman once told me she always fell sick before important events. "It's just my pattern," she said, as if it were written in stone. I asked her to change her words. Instead of saying, "I always get sick when I'm stressed," she began to affirm, "My body is strong and resilient in every situation." Within weeks, she attended 3 major gatherings without a single ailment. The pattern broke because the mental mold was shattered. Your subconscious mind is extraordinarily literal. It doesn't argue with you. It doesn't say, "Are you sure about that?" It simply accepts what you consistently declare and sets about making it true in your experience. This is why casual complaints are so dangerous. You think you're just venting, but you're actually giving orders to the most powerful creative force within you. I knew a man who joked constantly about being broke.